Roosted means roasted. Now you've heard that term among the turkey hunters somewhere or another, or somebody's told you that. But is that true? Well, we're going to be talking about that subject in this video, so you stay tuned as we're talking about roosted gobblers and when close is too close. Now, I've dealt in the past on other videos about roosted turkeys, but in this video I want to kind of dive a little bit more into it, because there's a lot of things that we can discuss, because this is still a question that I get a lot, is how do you know how close to get to that gobbler on the roost? Well, you know, I think a lot of it has to do, of course, with the terrain. The terrain plays a big in a decision as far as I'm making about how close I want to get to a gobbler when he's up on the roost gobbling. But if you're taught and you still got it in your mind that, hey man, you want to be, you know, right almost, you know, 50 yards or less, and that's what you got to do to be successful. And a lot of people believe that. Then let me tell you something, you're going to flush off a lot of gobblers, and you're going to really be in the danger zone, and you're going to spook a lot of gobblers off the roost, and the hunt be over as far as for that turkey pretty quick. Because you believed that you got to be super close to that gobbler, because that's what we saw on television, or that's what we saw, you know, on a video, or somebody told us in a seminar, or whatever the case. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't work. We know that works. You know, getting really tight sometimes, and maybe setting up, you know, pretty close to that gobbler. We can see him on the limb and the pitch dark, and maybe if we even have a decoy set out there, and he flies straight down and comes to that decoy, and you're back at the restaurant in about an hour, you know, celebrating. Hey, that happens. I'm not saying that doesn't at all. It absolutely does. But that doesn't happen all the time. In fact, it rarely happens because everybody's not hunting the same type of terrain. Now, if you're hunting in like a lot of open field situations and farmland, and you got a lot of food plots and a lot of places like that, yeah, you know, you might want to push in and try to get at the edge of that field, or right where that gobbler's roosted at. You might want to try to get super tight and try to set a decoy out if you're a big decoy person. You know, I'm not, but you know, if you are, you know, a lot of times that does help. But let's say you're hunting in, you know, a very timber situation, or maybe you're hunting in mountainous terrain like I have here around my house, where there's a lot of rock cliffs and just straight up and down like that back there. You know, let's say you're hunting in a situation like that, then a lot of it changes, man, because I don't care how quiet you're trying to be. I don't care how you know, stealthy you're trying to get through there. You know, you're human. You got 2 feet, you know, you're 200 pounds or 150 pounds, you're going through there, you're going to make noise. Even if you're going really slow and trying to be quiet, you're going to make noise, and you cannot shut the noise factor out 100%. Like you can, let's say, if you're walking, you know, a lot of pasture land and the pitch dark, and maybe you're walking in some soft mud or whatever the case. It's just different. So the terrain plays a big part in my decision about how close I want to get to this turkey and how far I want to be away from him. There's sometimes when I'm got a gobbler, and let's say he's up on the side of a hill like this, and he's roosted on the side of a bench. Hey, it's almost impossible to get close to him. So I want to hang back. You know, I'm going to hang back at least about 100 yards or so from the roost, because one, you know, I don't want to get in that danger zone where he can see he's up high. Even if you're just starting to break daylight, they can see a lot better than we can. And two, I want him coming looking for me. I want that gobbler to have to come looking for me for a little bit, because let's face it, if I'm up real close and I'm up there and I'm tree calling to him and he starts gobbling, and you know, maybe I'm seeing him out there on the limb or whatever the case, then he's going to be looking for that hen. And if you're not a big decoy person and you don't want to pack a bunch of decoys around, you know, you don't have a decoy out there, you know, a lot of times he's looking for that hen up in that tree, and he's looking on the forest floor and he don't see it. Then he looks out to his left or his right and he sees things you can't see. So he sees a hen way out there fly down, or he sees a a group of hens out there, fly into the hill, he's going to go there. That's why a lot of times you'll see a gobbler pitch right off and go the opposite direction, because he sees things you can't. So I want that gobbler to come looking for me for a little bit. I want him to come searching for me. And that's why a lot of times in a timber situation, I'll hang back at least sometimes 100, 150 yards sometimes. You say, man, that's really a long ways back. I don't know. But if I know that there's nothing out there that's going to hang that gobbler up, and I know that there's not a lot of terrain features that's going to hang him up, say like a fence or some kind of creek or some kind of blowdowns and stuff like that, a lot of trash he has to come through. If I know kind of the lay of the land and kind of what it looks like, sometimes I want to hang back and I want to call, because I want him to fly down and I want him to come looking for me a little bit. Many times that'll save you a hunt just by hanging back a little bit. So I know that a lot of people say, oh, you want to get super tight. But again, sometimes getting super tight will cost you a gobbler. Now, let's say you're hunting in farmland. Let's say you're hunting like I used to hunt when I lived in Missouri. I used to hunt a lot of open fields and a lot of, cut fields and stuff like that, and a lot of times them turkeys will roost right on the edge of them fields. You've seen it, I've seen it. They'll roost right almost on the edge of some kind of a field where they can see. Okay, in that situation, and I know kind of where he's at. Let's say I went out the evening before, whatever the case, and I've roosted that gobbler, and I kind of know where he's at. Yeah, I may get really close. I may really try to push in and try to get as close as I can. Now, why? Well, here's the reason why. Because one, I can, because of the way the terrain is. I feel like I can do it. And two, I want to get really close. And this is kind of where, even though I'm not a big decoy person, I'll put a decoy out in the edge of a field. But it's usually just one lone hen. I'll just put a little lone hen decoy sometimes out there, because the moment he sees that hen out in an open place, a lot of times he'll fly right down to her. Okay, but I don't hunt a lot of places like that. So again, you got to be versatile, and you got to know when to push in and when to push out. So a lot of people, and the reason I'm saying this is because a lot of you will watch these hunts in open farmland, and then you'll try to do that on public land, or you'll try to do that in mountainous regions because you think that's the right way to do it, and it blows your hunt. So you have to be versatile about the terrain and kind of when you can do that and when you can't. Let me give you a quick example of this, something that happened to me just about 2 or 3 years ago that caused me to be successful on this really hard, old, big, long spurred turkey. This particular gobbler that I wound up killing, man, I watched him for 2 days in the same exact place, almost in the same exact place for 2 days. 2 days prior, I had him 15 yards hard to my right and couldn't move. He just come in right here and then walked behind me. I couldn't do nothing, and so I had to watch him walk away, and I couldn't get him back. Well, the next day, he was almost in the same area. It was about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was almost in the same exact area, and didn't wind up killing him that day. Well, I knew that gobbler was comfortable in that little area. I knew that gobbler was hanging out. He wasn't vocal at all. I mean, this gobbler was just gobbled maybe 1-2 times the entire morning. He just wasn't vocal. It was hard to get on him. But the next morning, the third morning, I went in there and he gobbled right at daylight. He gobbled, but he was like on the side of this hill, kind of like this here. It went straight up. Well, I knew that there's no way I could get to this turkey without him seeing me or hearing me. Even if I was real careful. Even if I was, it was going to be really hard to get him to me. So here's the decision I made. Instead of going to this turkey where he was roosted at, I actually hung back about 200 yards. You heard me, 200 yards from this gobbler. He was about 200 yards up on side this point, way out there. But I just hung back because I said, hey, this gobbler, he wants to be around this place. Now, it may take him 2 or 3 hours to get here, but he wants to be in this area. He's been here 2 straight days. Nobody's bothered him. So guess what? I went in there and I sat back about 180 to 200 yards away from him on the roost, sit there, and I just was patient and just tree called to him in case anything else was around. I yelped a little bit, clucked some, every 35, 40 minutes or so, I'd do a series of calls. He never would gobble though. But sure enough, about 2 hours later, it was about maybe 2 hours or so, maybe a little over, this guy, I was patient, just sat there and waited, and here he comes. I just seen him pop out of nowhere. He was coming the whole time, but because I stayed back and I knew the area he was coming to, instead of going to him, like they do on television, I stayed back, and this gobbler come right to me, and I wound up killing him. Big 24-pound gobbler, big old, about 1.5 inch spurs. He was a big one. So again, What if I would have pushed it? What if I'd have said, oh, he's gobbling, I got to get as close as I can? Probably wouldn't have killed him. You know, probably would have blown the whole thing. So again, it just depends on the gobbler and the way he's gobbling. It depends on the terrain. It depends on a lot of things of how close I want to get. So remember that this coming turkey season, and remember, roosted don't always mean roasted. It's setting up right means roasted. So that's something you may want to think about. Look at the terrain, look at where he's at, and look at the situation, make a decision, and many times that will save your turkey hunt, I promise. And we got a lot more great videos coming for you, educational style videos and turkey hunts as turkey season approaches. So make sure to hit that subscribe button down in the corner. I'd really appreciate it. And stay tuned to this channel all season long because we got a lot more great content for you. Also check me out on social media on Facebook and Instagram platforms, and follow us over there as well, and stay with us all year long. Also check out tidewee.com where you can get boots, the hunting blinds, the turkey vests we're using, and the range finders, and all the great products over at tidewee.com. Make sure to check them out as well, and use the promo code down in the description of this video for some percentage off. Also check out springfevercustomcalls.com where you can get my signature series of calls, the Old Sly signature series of Matt Dale calls, the Old Sly slate call and the box call, and my mouth calls. Check them out at springfevercustomcalls.com, and all the other great calls available there as well. And get them now before turkey season gets here, because they get really hard to get in the heat of the season. And check out my website, check out the links to my apparel where you can get the hoodies and the shirts, also at Dale Outdoors, and the hats if you like to have a hat. All of them is available there, and we'd really appreciate if you check us out there as well. Also Patreon, where you can actually help us with a small donation monthly. Just go to patreon.com and check us out there. We'd really appreciate any help you could give us over there, just to help continuing growing the channel and helping bring better quality videos to you in the future. So give us a small donation monthly over there. We'd really appreciate it. Maybe $5, $3, $2, whatever the case. It just goes a long way to help, and we'd really appreciate that as well. Stay tuned for more great content from Dale Outdoors, and we'll see you in the next video.